and the expert witnesses, the use of force expert that they brought on, very broad, did not help their case at all. It really did not help their case. And on cross-examination, he was forced to walk back his testimony as well. So, it's expected that the Judge Cahill said, basically, he expects that the prosecution, that the defense will wrap up their case by the end of the week, and that the prosecution, then that closing arguments will take place next Monday. All right. I don't expect the I don't expect the defense to go longer than this Friday for their case that they're putting up, because their case is weak, as I've said before. All right. Their case is weak, as I've said before. So, okay, so those watching on Facebook and YouTube, we're having some technical difficulties. I'm trying to figure this out. You can hear me, but you can't see me. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure this out right now, so just bear with me. So, today was day 12 in the trial, and the prosecution rested their case today, and the defense started their case. So Derek Chauvin's defense called his first witness, pitting its own use of force expert against a parade of officials and experts called by the prosecution, who said that Derek Chauvin acted reasonably when he knelt on George Floyd's neck. Now, they presented this witness very broad of Bozeman, Montana, testified that, now he's a use of force expert, okay, former police officer. He testified in the case dealing with Laquan McDonald. You remember Laquan McDonald in Chicago was shot 16 times by Officer Jason Van Dyke. Jason Van Dyke is in prison right now, rightfully so, where he belongs. Okay. But very broad, older white gentleman. He testified that Derek Chauvin was, quote unquote, justified in his use of force against George Floyd. And he said that Derek Chauvin acted, quote, with objective reasonableness, end quote. But he also acknowledged under cross-examination that former officer Derek Chauvin kept his knee in place while George Floyd was complying. So he gave conflicting testimony. Now, he's a paid witness. Okay, so I mean, okay, well, I'm not mad at him for being a paid witness, but it's like you're giving conflicting testimony. Then he said it was justified. We're gonna let you hear some of that testimony here, because it made no sense whatsoever. I want to go to clip one. Let me see. Hey, Mike, I copied you on the email also. I don't know who we have. Is Shakita there yet or not? But if we can go to clip one from NBC Nightly News. Defense begins its case in Derek Chauvin trial. Okay, can we go to clip one?
Witnesses and 11 days of testimony. Today, the murder trial of Derek Chauvin entered a new phase.
Your Honor, the state of Minnesota rests.
With the prosecution wrapping up, the defense took center stage, arguing that George Floyd died from drugs and pre-existing health conditions, not Chauvin's knee on his neck.
Put your hands on the desk.
The first witness, a retired Minneapolis officer who arrested Floyd during a previous incident in 2019, as shown in this body camera video.
The passenger was unresponsive and non-compliant to my commands.
But under cross-examination, he acknowledged Floyd eventually did comply. A paramedic then testified Floyd told her he'd taken multiple opioid pills that day.
I asked him why. He said it's because he was addicted.
The defense then shifted to the 2020. Speaking publicly for the first time, Shawanda Hill, the woman in Floyd's SUV, told the jury he was asleep when the officers approached the vehicle.
I was like, baby, that's sleep. Open the door, roll down the window, whatever he told me to do. So he looked back and he seen the man the man had the gun at the window when we looked back to him. So he instantly grabbed the wheel, and he was like, please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me.
Also taking the stand, a Minneapolis Park police officer who detained Hill while other officers restrained Floyd. The defense played video from his body camera, and he testified about the crowd of bystanders.
Very aggressive. Aggressive towards the officers, yes.
Then the defense called its own use of force expert.
I felt that DerekChauvin was justified and was acting with objective reasonableness.
The prosecution pushed back.
In this moment, was this crowd threatening crowd?
No.
The defense doesn't have to have a great case. The prosecution does, because the prosecution needs a unanimous verdict to convict, but the defense only needs one stubborn juror to lead to a hung jury.
Outside the courthouse, Floyd's family stood shoulder to shoulder with the family of Daunte Wright.
Police officers are killing us, and we are being murdered at a rate that I never thought I could imagine.
It is not clear exactly how many witnesses the defense will call, but the judge has told the jury that he expects closing arguments on Monday, Lester.
Okay, pause right there. Okay, so the Judge Cahill expects closing arguments on Monday. So basically today, the defense tried to justify the use of force against George Floyd, paint George Floyd as this drug addict who had to be feared, and this brutal use of force had to be used against him. Now, the prosecution has presented 38 witnesses. The prosecution has presented 38 witnesses. It's not clear how many witnesses the defense is going to present. Now, use of force expert Barry Broad, and we're going to go to clip 2 after the break because we're coming up on the break. One of the major questions at the heart of the DerekChauvin trial is, was the use of force exerted by DerekChauvin reasonable? But the answers, we're hearing kind of far-ranging answers. Now, the witnesses and even the police, the police officers that the prosecution has presented, everybody from Police Chief Arredondo to Lieutenant Mercer, who is a use of force trainer, they're pretty consistent. But Barry Broad, who is a former police officer and use of force expert called by the defense, testified that putting George Floyd in a prone position on the ground, on his stomach, was justified and not necessarily a deadly use of force, contradicting numerous witnesses called by the prosecution, including other use of force experts. One of those use of force experts, Seth Stoughton, a law professor, I think he testified Friday, former police officer and paid expert for the prosecution, he testified Monday. He argued Monday that DerekChauvin should have identified that the force could have led to George Floyd's medical distress. Okay. All right. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. I got to try to fix this. I have to disconnect. I have to end this stream, and I have to try to figure out why the video is not working. I installed some new software updates about an hour or so ago, and that may have something to do